All right, folks, welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our Traders Talk Workshop. You can tell here this is Wednesday, not Monday. We had off on Monday with President's Day. Great to see all of our students and members alike, though, inside our live trading room first. Leda, Barbara, Michael, Margaret, Elena, Octavia. I saw Alicia just before, Lynn and Randy just now. Got Gillis, Luis, a couple of our new trial members joining us here, Uday and Bruce. Great to see you both. We had a couple more coming off of just this past week. I see Christopher L. testing our room out for this week from New Jersey. Great to see Sylvain here from British Columbia, Canada here. Michael M. from Portland, Oregon. Victor. A lot of our new members joining us here this Wednesday. Great to have all of us here. If you're back on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, the works. Oh, thankfully, my face is too ugly for you today. In fact, no, I'm having a little issue with the webcam right now, but otherwise, should have popping up here at some point here. Let me get this stream running where I'm having a tough time posting the comment, Rich. All right, well, if you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook Live, LinkedIn, etc., we're going to look to invite you to our live trading room just at the end of this workshop, but there it is there, a little obnoxious on the bottom there in blue, but hit the like or follow or subscribe button down below. At cybertradingu is our handle on YouTube. So if you're on Facebook Live, X, LinkedIn, etc., go to YouTube. Namely, that's where we host mainly of all of our education and all of our educational videos. We do a live stream each and every morning at 9 o'clock Eastern time. And then from there, normally every Monday, I'm on here for our workshop. So at cybertradingu is the handle. We'll pop that back up in just a moment. I'll tell you what, my tongue is starting to get tied here. Give me a quick sec. I do need to actually just get my screen sharing, in fact, for all of us inside the room. I thought I was good to go even on that front. But we came off a pretty interesting morning. Not only that, we had our actual classes today. You know, the Phase 1 stock course beginning today for the month of February. We're talking all about different charting patterns. In fact, here's my PowerPoint deck I was just going off of a moment ago, talking about support, talking about resistance. Hopefully the tongue is not too tied for you here. Now, let's begin with at least a couple of day trades that we caught this morning. Stocks that we called out, stocks that I ended up taking myself, stocks that I did not take, but we called out and our students took. So I know Bell cleaned up on that HIMS trade from earlier today. A few of us did pretty nicely on that one. The SMCI, though, this is like kind of a nice case study I want to focus in on here because seemed like a bit of a pain in the ass this morning up until just now. It broke out over $60 and then ended up running up pretty nicely. There could be more room to go on this too. So why this stock? Well, it came off of pretty good earnings from last week. Actually, such good earnings. It made a much better move up heading into the end of last week than I thought it would make. I mean, ran into the close on Friday. Of course, we were off on Monday this week with with President's Day. And then here we were once again Tuesday, yesterday, ended up running up pretty nicely, then even more. So question is, how much higher can this keep going, before we see a red day, before it pulls back, lower highs, lower lows, right? That's your first thought going into today, let alone even going into Tuesday, yesterday. So the more it keeps going up, that roller coaster is going to find a top. It's going to hit a top, come back down. Well, this morning, this is where we'll look at book map and we'll see at least where were the big levels on this stock. And in fact, let me just ask first. I see John, Bell, Lynn and Randy, Leda here, Kathleen. I saw Steve, Patrick, Robert from earlier. We're going to talk more about this in terms of our classes, at least, next month when we teach further down the line with like level 3 and level 4. What price levels, what common set of price levels are we more likely to find those big icebergs off of, especially for a stock like SMCI? Just a stock like SMCI. Of course, I say that for a reason. Not every stock is like SMCI. So right away, just for instance, if you are saying 50-cent levels, well, just remember, those are too tiny for a stock this expensive. So if you're looking at like a cheap dollar stock, $5 stock, you can get away with that. I would more so just lean on the $1 levels, not even just the $1 levels, but in fact, to go even a step further, because I would start at the ones, I would, but to go a step further, well, I'd say even more abstract, more wide and strong than just $1 price levels. Think about the fives. Think about the $5 prices, the $10 prices. So this morning, we're going to show a book map at least in a moment, and it's not even holding as great within the graph. It is chipping around it a little bit here, but I would just right away assume $60 would be a massive level today, not only as a $1 price or a $5 price, it's a decade level, right? It's a decade level. So yeah, you say the $1 price is here too, like let's say just 59, 58, 57. Maybe you could say up top 61 up top here, perhaps, right? Possible. But just going into the morning, if you are looking at SMCI as a potential trade, we had it on the morning watch list, the pre-market watch list rather, there's a chance for this to go higher. But we need to know where our big levels are to begin with. So Bookmap will be that confirmation. That will lead me to definitely say, okay, this is strong and this is not. But to begin, I'm just going to focus on $60 initially. Now, let's see what happens. Because you could see, of course, it chopped around it. But beginning at 4 o'clock this morning here, pre-market hours, we're all sleeping here at this time. But you got a 49, 50,000 share seller out there. We don't need to be up at 4 in the morning to recognize this. If our platforms at 7:30 in the morning, it's starting to move up there already at that point in pre-market hours, right? But you could just tell, like loading up Bookmap, loading up level 4, it was out there since the crack of dawn. So that's your big price to watch. It's an assumed level, like you should know that just from your assumption, but this confirms it. Now, the whole theory behind just seeing a stock continue, the more it's failing to break lower, you're thinking, all right, well, I guess there's a chance, right? If it's not going to make a lower low, so you're saying there's a chance, right? Throughout this morning in pre-market, this was just very dangerous to trade to begin with. So this stock wasn't really as good of a pre-market day trade as it was a trade after the market opened. And I'm not just saying that based on the end result after. That's easy to say kind of looking at the pop just recently here. But in pre-market, let me ask all of our students here, what makes pre-market higher risk? What makes pre-market more dangerous to trade within? Not only are you trading a stock that's flying around like no other, this thing is a category 5. This stock, try and separate it. Like if you think about like hurricanes, category 1, not so bad. Maybe you could survive, right? A little tiny damage. Category 5, house is destroyed. This thing is crazy. This thing can rip your house down, right? So in pre-market, the thing that makes it even more dangerous on top of just that is that you can't set stop orders, right? No market orders, no stop orders. And that's like the bigger thing. Like I can't use a stop, can't use my stop limit order. So that's where I'd say though, hey, the more times this just keeps pressing up against 60, the more without breaking lower, that's where you're saying that there's a chance. So throughout the morning, what happens? Well, it chopped around 60 here and there, but look what happened on the volume here. Volume on the far right. It shows a pretty good lump right at $60. And if we zoom in on that, might be tough to see. Try and kind of squint your eyes and answer for me if you can. Is there more green on this volume bar, this volume spike, or is there more red? What stands out more to you, the green or the red? I'll try and repeat that question. So which of these looks larger? What looks larger, like just from your eyes? The red is not behind the green. Let's just give you the hint there. The red is not standing behind the green. So what looks to be more of, green, or is there more red, you think? With that in mind then. I'd say there's more green, right? Because you see like just a ton of it, and then it kind of stops here, and then just only a little bit of red. So there's a lot more green than a red, in my opinion, right there on that $60 price. That's all from pre-market volume. What do we nickname green as again, folks? Elena, Michael, Glenn, Luis, students of ours at CTU. Going through the classes, time and sales, we cover this quite frequently. Now, what's the nickname that we give green? There's a technical name, but just what's the nickname? Green. Buying. So that's where you're saying there's a ton of buying pressure building into this trade off of 60. What happens if we keep seeing this get poked at throughout the course of the morning? All right, well, it took a long time here to get the job done, didn't it? Well, here's where we say a couple of things. Going into the market open, you do want to wait the first 5 minutes. If this starts to push up after the first 5 minutes, That's where I'll just shed transparency right here. If you jump in within this circle here, it's chopping around 60, a small amount, but it's a great setup. If you went into this trade thinking, all right, right within that area, it's after the first, so we're doing our job. And right here, it's still around the 60. That, in my opinion, be an A+ entry. If you came to me in a coaching call and you said, Josh, I took this trade, I'd take a loss, I got out, it was a small loss, but what do you think of it? I'd say it's a grade A entry, grade A attempt. But again, for any of our new students here, I compared myself in our class just before to, if you know those like Toy Story dolls, like the Woody or the Buzz Lightyear, you pull the string from the back, you say the same 5 lines over and over. Well, hey, when a stock breaks through a big level, Brian and Margaret, Barbara, Gillis, me here, when a stock breaks through a big level, Brian, what are we expecting shortly after? What's our thought? What's our expectation once we jump into that move? Exactly. From Brian, from Gillis, from Lynn and Randy, Margaret, all of our students, because right? You go through the classes, you kind of know what I look for in these, sayings. So that's what I start with. When a stock breaks through a big level, we better be getting that freaking big move short. If this thing is knocking off from 60, it's going to make a big move shortly after. I guarantee it. I'm in line with that. If it's not going to make a big move up, it's going to make a big move down. So because of the move from all of last week, it's easy to think it's going to pull back here. So, hey, if you were hands off at 60, all right, good call. If you were looking for the breakout from 60 here, I'd say you had a grade A attempt. It didn't work out, and you got to know what happens if it's not going to work out. Take the break-even trade. Take the tiny loss, right? Hell of a lot better than holding on to this damn reaming down here on this candle before it's too late, right? So good attempt, just what you wanted at that time. Now, what happened later on? Well, it came back up to the level here at 10:27 in the morning. Well, this is where I mentioned to you another one of my catchphrases. I'm giving you the greatest today. It's not just that my best entries are after it breaks over the big level. I alluded to that greatly at the end of our class just before. But it's also the retest aspect. The more times it's retesting that big level in a smaller frequency of time, in a smaller time span, I'd be bullish. Now, that's where I say from earlier. It was chipping around the 60 here. It fell off. This was at 9:07 in the morning. So by the time it comes back up, it's on this candle. You still want to wait a little bit. That's why I'm actually saying this is good. That's why I'm actually saying this is decent, because you waited actually for a few shake arounds to wait to see an initial reaction. Now, the time from here, 9:41 Eastern time, to the next time I tested the level, it's about 45 minutes in time. That's a lot of time in between level tests. So seeing it pop up and down just once, that's not surprising. That's easy for me to expect, because I'm not. This actually played out very well to our expectations. Now, here though, this is where we'll say at least, I'd still be pretty hesitant here. A lot of time that went by in between levels. I mean, if you just set it up for within this gap of time, how about this larger gap here after? So, we're heading into the late morning, early afternoon. If you were hesitant jumping in here, that's not surprising. But it is just to say, it's also not surprising that this took off as it did, because it's not the first time it was testing it. It wasn't the second. It wasn't the third. It was like the 18th time this thing was testing this level today, and it wasn't breaking lower. You thought it was right here, and it snapped back up out of nowhere. My jaws to the floor when I saw this come back up, and I was telling our students, like, you got to be kidding me. I was calling out big resistance at 60. I saw this post. I'm like, this thing, is it? I'm like, oh my God, that's surprising. So I wrote this off earlier, right? But if it keeps nipping this resistance here and keeps peppering this thing, it's got to give out. So was this an easy trade to anticipate? Not if you're focused on smaller time frames, because this was kind of sudden, just about an hour plus afterwards. So, it came out of, left field in terms of time. In terms of the level, it did not come out of left field. We knew that this was the sweet spot, at least from the morning session. We knew that this is where we had the big buying pressure building up, building up, building up. Well, eventually paid off, right? All right, so that was SMCI at least, as far as what happened on this stock from earlier today, why it made the move it made. Essentially, it did hold over pretty nicely at the VWAP price just as it was consolidating here, and you could have used that maybe. When it's flattening out like this, though, after such a big run up it had just last week and from earlier, like unless if you're getting the break, it's tougher to just jump in sideways. It's tougher to jump in as it's dropping. If there's a really clean resistance breakout, like this could have been flipped into a support over time. But it's just to mention, if you're looking for more bullish momentum, more buying pressure to come in, you're better off on the breakout. You're going to get more bang for the buck on the breakout. Now, at this point, though, yeah, it worked out here where it held support pretty much off the VWAP price right here. But not every stock does that after such a run up it had from last week into yesterday. It wouldn't have surprised me if it started to hold 60, test support, then smash lower again and pull back. So that's just where I do prefer normally seeing the retest of resistance, especially heading into late morning or afternoon time slots like right now. Lower energy, lower momentum time frame. Now, SMCI, let me know if you have any questions on that, at least for right now. Carrie asking next resistance at 62.56. That is an interesting price. Again, I would focus on whole number levels here. 62, 63, maybe 65 up next after that. $5 price, right? That's exactly what we're trying to cover in terms of looking at Bookmap. As far as the daily chart goes, that is different. We covered that just in class before. So, if there's a price that you see, at least from the daily chart, you could always poke at that too. Right around here, I'd say, loosely speaking, around 63.50, or loosely speaking, it's a little bit underneath, probably maybe even 63, like 63-ish, 63 and change. Gap to fill here too. It probably will fill at some point in time. But yeah, nice little move there on SMCI today. Now, I'll tell you what, though. Here's my morning. You want to know how my morning went? Because yesterday, I had to drop about $1,300 on a new computer on me on Sunday, right before President's Day. So I had to drop about $1,300 on that. I dropped about $2,000 on a new car, like payment for financing my car. So make money. There are days where I don't need to make money, days where it sucks. And I say, you know what? I don't need to be jumpy and desperate. And well, I'll tell you what, whether the market was slow or not today, I needed to make money. So I wanted to trade. I wanted to find some good entries. I did not jump into SMCI today. I wish I could say I did just before here. We were coming off a moment ago at least. But let me tell you my morning. So I'm on a pre-market coaching call with one of our students, Phil. And Phil, look at where this thing is now, obviously. But, the stock ALZN took off in pre-market. Just another good example of like, hey, it's going to make that big move going up. It's going to make a big move the other way. Guarantee it. So point being, this had resistance at 170. It did pop over it, and it did move up pretty nicely off of it to begin. So I was thinking if it were to go under then over from 170 to try and build that base, build that support from resistance that it broke over, I would be looking for a cleaner move off of that. So it actually happened so fast, all within one candle here. Let me show the tiny microscopic 15-second chart. But point being, like, I just tried looking for support there from broken resistance. Under, over, and I needed the bounce. Didn't get it. Just pulled back more here, and I ended up getting out. So I took it was like a 20-cent loss on half size. So not a good start to my day, right? All right, well, what do we do? What's the next step? We got to go back to break even. We got to fight our way back. Fausto says this all the freaking time. If you start off down, that's not like the worst thing in the world. Don't put all this pressure on you. But if there's a profit that you could take it. And worst case is don't lose any more money than you're already down. So let me ask us here. If you're on YouTube, and me too, because I want to make sure the audio is good to go there too. I had a little glitch earlier today. And for all of us on inside our live trading room, please, you let me know as well. I asked this earlier. Anyone here a golf fan? Anyone a golf aficionado? Anyone like the sport of golf? Whether you like taking naps during watching golf or you like playing. Anyone a golf fan? Reason I ask is that, hey, you know what? If you go par on one hole in the round of 18, guess what, guys? It's not that bad. It's actually kind of good. Don't beat yourself up if you go break even on one trade, but you definitely don't want to go bogey, double bogey, right? You don't want to hit the ball in the water. But you know what? If you went bogey on one hole, you messed up one hole, and then you go par for the next couple, is that the end of the world? No. We beat ourselves up too much as traders. So yeah, I'm down to begin my morning. It's okay. Like now on the flip side, I'm going to try and make a little joke here, so a little profanity, but folks, it's not like I have some shit-eating grin on my face. I'm like, yeah, I'm down. No, but I'm remaining level-headed, remaining pretty balanced here. I'm saying, you know what? If I go par, and I'm not losing money, then it's not the end of my world. We didn't really have a great morning to begin with outside of SMCI, and that like was more of a late bloomer that popped, right around noontime. This thing's flying, right? But hey, we had a couple others. We did really well on HIMS we called out early in the morning, but this didn't really give us too many pullbacks. You don't want to chase it on the way up if you had missed it at first. So a couple stocks that took off without you. JTAI was a mover, at least in pre-market here. It dumped off after the open. So I guess it bounced at 10 a.m. It might be trying to pop coming. This didn't really give us many clean shots, not really many clean chances. Just remember what we had yesterday, right? Didn't we have, I think it was from yesterday, we had this STAI. Oh, this gave us numerous opportunities. Higher low, higher high, after a big run up to big. We didn't really have that clean type of move to begin. So ALZN, I took a loss on to start my day. I went to, let me get my actual position manager here. I had that open just before. 1 second. There we go. So I went to NIVF afterwards, another dud from our list here this morning. But this was starting to bounce going into the open. I thought there was a case that could try and regain strength, make a pop up to. Hey, I jumped in at like 270 or 275. It was 275 is my entry. And then, hey, if it's not going to try and hold over that, at least at a good entry, it was up about maybe 10 cents, 15 cents. I was looking for that big move shortly after. I'm not being greedy. Maybe I could have taken the profit to wash out some of that loss I first had, but in a worst case scenario event, which is what happened, as it pulled back, it took me out exactly at my price, right at 275. So no harm, no foul. That's what I said on the mic. And look at this thing get crumbled after. So I don't feel necessarily good, like I'm doing backflips over this, but I'm not beating myself up. I think that we beat ourselves up way too much. So I'm not beating myself up. Now, what's the next trade after that? I mean, there might be something moving here. There might be like a stock popping without me, and there might be something I want to get my hands in on. No, the CELH trade, Celsius, was a nice little push. I eventually jumped into that. There was one I took before that, at least. That was a break even to begin. One more, par, and it was TRNR. This thing was pretty shaky at first. So I was looking for a move. My entry on this at the time was off of 188. I remember just right away, just looking for the hold over the VWAP price. Right? It was starting to inch up. It was moving up here. I thought there was a case for this. It was a little bit later on, 52. So it was like to push up a little bit later on, but ended up trying to see this make that big pop. If it was going to make that higher low, higher high. Again, just simple catchphrases that I'm just trying to use and base my trading off of. So not just highs, higher highs, but if this is going to hold over the VWAP cleanly, then we should get the breakout higher. We should get this to pop up towards this 210-ish, if not maybe even more. So it didn't do that for a long time. So I ended up in one break even on this trade. I was in at 189. I got out at 188 break even. Now from there, though, that's where I started to find a couple better opportunities. I did jump in on this trade afterwards. I took a second trade on this that got me about like, what was it, 16 cents or 15 cents on half my position. All right, it was something. But let me show you a couple of easier moves that thankfully were, because, hey, I'm not anticipating chop. I'm not looking and hunting for consolidation like this thing did. This is crap. So if I'm expecting big move shortly after, then once I get a good entry, then let's try and hold on and see if it holds my levels. So that's where, at least on the Celsius trade, I turn to at least next. Now, it was already nipping this 2550 level. It was already testing it. I am not the biggest proponent of Celsius long-term graph. If you follow us on social media, follow myself on social media, CTU Josh on X, I have been saying, like, you have these like accounts with 200, 300,000 followers. These big accounts you might find are they're like trying to like pump information about Celsius and, oh, it's going to move up. It's going to be a nice long-term play. This stock has been down for the last 10 months. Whoops, that is not Celsius. That's TRNR. But this is Celsius. This stock has been down for the last 10 months. I don't lie, right? But that's just where you have people on one side of the coin thinking, well, it's got to bounce back up. It's going to be a good play again. It's going to move up to here again and hit resistance there. Not everything is chartable. Like, this thing is on a steady decline for a reason. It's not just the chart. It's the company. Maybe they're not flipping as big of a profit as they were expecting. Maybe they became in debt. I don't know at all. I'm just speaking to the point that the way it is for a reason. So, if you were looking for a move up on Celsius back in September, when I saw all these like, Furu influencers trying to like pump this, come on, at least have like, a little semblance of like responsibility and act and say, all right, I was wrong. Right? Because it's been 6 months. What the hell? It only broke lower and then pushed back up here recently today. All right. Now, I'm skeptical of this trade for that reason. I think it's going to come back down over time. I don't have short position on it. I don't have put position on it. I'm not doing that. I'm just not confident of the up move. But you know what? As much as I am not confident of the up move long term, I'm going to focus on the volume here. And there's two things that stand out to me here on this. A, the 2550 was getting poked at. And we just said before, the more times that level gets poked at again, it's more prone for it to pop. It's more prone for that reaction to actually happen. Now, the icing on the cake, the real kicker to this trade was the fact that we had this 49,000 share buyer pop up. As soon as I saw this thing here, I called it out on the mic and I jumped in. So I'm going to trade manager back up here. Got in at 956 and like almost 957 at the time. It was right at 2552. So $25.52 entry price, right? Now, thankfully, it moved up. Thankfully, it didn't break below 25.50. I ended up getting out on this. It was at 25.79. It was at like 10:18 in the morning, right there. So was it a big move shortly after? Did this run up to 26? Did this break higher? Was this some elaborate run? Unfortunately not. 26 was your next level. So I thought there was a good chance for it to try and test that, try and break over that maybe. But that's just where I said to myself earlier, I'm like, all right, I'm down on my first trade, that ALZN, right? So at least at this point, if it's not going to make that better move up to 26, I don't trust the long term. So for as much as I trusted the volume to take the trade, if I start to grow a little uncomfortable about the future of this move, why not take the money? 1 + 1 = 2. If I'm down to begin my day and I'm less certain about this, and hey, you know what? I had 2 pars on my morning just before this one, meaning 2 complete break-even trades at the same price I got in at. I'm not trying to take break-evens all day. I'm trying to make money. So you know what? At this point, it made more sense for me to get out, take some money and run. I said to our students, if it broke over 26 and ran higher, then so be it. Because there's other trades out there. There could be, at least. That's my hope. That's my positivity and optimism trying to speak. But that's at least to say it ended up actually a little bit more. I think it got right close to 26. That's like at our class. And then came back down. So, it didn't really continue that much further, right? All right. Now, Celsius has earnings out tomorrow afternoon. Let me ask us here this quick question, because if you're on social media, if you're on YouTube right now, definitely I would want you to answer, definitely participate as well, because if you're familiar, if you're an investor, you definitely know this answer. how often, or I'm sorry, not the right phrase. How early in advance do we see companies announce their earnings date? Meaning, like, when do you know in advance that Nvidia or Tesla or Microsoft are going to report their earnings? Don't they give the date out like 3 weeks, 4 weeks in advance? Don't they do that? Like, if you know Nvidia is coming out with earnings, they're gonna post the earnings date maybe like 1 month in advance. Now, I don't think I've ever seen this happen. I could be wrong. I've been doing this now with Fausto for over 10 years, so I'm sure it's happened in the past. But man, I don't remember the last time this happened. Celsius last night reported that they're going to have their earnings on Thursday. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Right? Would they do it to try and throw off like the people that are short on the stock and that are like buying the puts, driving it down? Maybe. But if that was so easy to do, if manipulation was so widely accepted and popular within the stock market like that, wouldn't we be seeing a lot more of that over time and historically in the past? Right? Because I tell you, like, I don't think that, I'm sorry, I tell you, we definitely see it more often if companies were more widely allowed to do that, to like try and F up the options, flow. Gil is saying good earnings coming. Well, if you know something about their financials, then that can give you a good hunch. But again, I'm saying like if they did this to try and announce something to mess up anyone short on the stock, I just feel like other companies would be doing this. That leaves me to ask further, well, why is this even happening? Well, let's think on the flip side of it. Maybe they're trying to brush it under the rug. Maybe they're going to announce something not so good, maybe to provide less time to hype up the stock, less time to let traders' hopes up, right? If they just do kind of a sudden announcement, maybe not as many people will notice it. Anyone here a football fan? Anyone here an NFL football fan? My apologies by saying football, because if you're in Europe right now, you're probably going to be insulted when I say that. Not footy, unfortunately, but a little American football. Now, if you know football, then you know that there's like suspensions and all sorts of crap that happens throughout the year. Players getting busted for steroids and coaches this and that. It happens throughout the year. It's not even a running gag. This happens. You'll see the NFL main office announce a lot of moves happening, suspensions and bad stuff on a Friday before a weekend. And they do that actually to try and brush it under the rug so the main sports tablets and store and shows, like, pardon the interruption around them, they wouldn't pick up on it until Monday. Got a few days to try and brush it under the rug, you know what I mean? Now, here in this instance, it's a little different where, like, let's say that this whole theory is true. Let's say if they're trying to brush this under the rug and do like kind of a surprise announcement, just trying to throw people off where maybe not as many people know it's going to be shitty coming up. It would make sense because they've never reported an earnings on a Friday. At least the last 2 years, they haven't reported earnings on a Friday. If they were to say, oh, it's going to be on a Friday after the close, I think that's like too obvious. I think that's like too obvious where too many red flags would start popping up. Be like, what the hell? All right, on a Friday. If they do it for a Thursday, that does at least fall in line with previous weekdays where they've reported their earnings. At least they've done mainly Wednesday, Thursdays in the past. It's just a thought. It's just a thought. Right now, this morning, at least, maybe some shorts starting to cover in lieu of that. It did end up making a nice run in the after hours, at least from yesterday when they announced that news. So perhaps this could be early short covering, perhaps preparing if it's good. I wouldn't be overtly bullish yet. I would not be. And guess what? If this takes off like no other, then guess what? There's 1,000 other stocks in the sea that we'll try and catch. It's okay if we're uncertain about one. But that's where I'll tell you, I'm definitely not going to jump in because I'm more uncertain as far as like the long-term move goes, at least. As far as the long-term move goes. So at least this morning, little push up. It didn't give me that much more. As far as earnings tomorrow afternoon, we'll see what happens. If it's good earnings and I read a good report, then Friday morning, perhaps I'll be more confident to jump in as a day trade, try and catch a quick little bounce, try and catch a breakout, whatever it may be. Now, after this Celsius trade I did capture from this morning session, I did look around and I'm trying to find the next one. Again, I got to make some money today because I just paid a shit ton on my car and also had to just drop money on a brand new computer. So old Josh here has some sharp teeth to make some money today. We got to find the next trade. What's the next move? Well, I ended up scanning the market. I was on Benzinga Pro. I saw this one stock. I'm like, okay, it fits the mold at least. It just fits what we're looking for. Maybe this could work out. Maybe it doesn't, but it's definitely something I feel safe with calling out. Now, notice the timeline, of course, just so you know where I'm at here in my morning. I got out on Celsius at 9:57 in the morning. So literally here, I'm looking for the next move. And I find this IBRX pop my scanner. Quick question for Luis, Michael, Kerry, Bruce, and all of us here in chat. If you look on my screen here, look on the matrix here. This is my level 3 window here where I'm flashing my cursor. What's the spread? What's the spread right now live on this stock as it's actually moving? What's the spread right there? If you're not familiar with the spread, we're going to teach you that in our classes. But Elena, Gillis, Sam, Michael J. Great to see Michael here as always. 1 penny. Well, the stock had a penny spread when it was moving at this point, right? And that's the first thing that makes a stock actually more tradable. Has a filled-in order book, has a tight spread. This had those characteristics right away. It was moving upward. So here at this point in the morning, I'm thinking, well, reversal time's around 10:15, 10:30, right? 10:15, 10:30 Eastern time. So at 9:57, 9:59 in the morning, 10 o'clock, whatever, I got time. I got time here. Now, where do we have resistance here on this one graph? Just looking at my page here, my screen, where do we seemingly have some sort of top or resistance? Gillis says 365. Sam says 375. Do I have 385? No, I'm kidding. I'm teasing. A lot of us saying 375, though, kind of agreeing generally speaking. Yeah, I mean, you could just say kind of within this area here, 373, 375-ish. Just in class before, I was using this as our case study. So I put the line here, 1 bar, 2 bar, 3 bar, pretty clean off 373 exactly. Just point being is that, hey, if this can break over this resistance, then you know what? Hey, for everyone else here, so Michael and Michael D, Elena, when this breaks over this as resistance, what are we looking for resistance to initially, at least at first? To yeah, absolutely support. So what happens? It broke over resistance here. I ended up jumping in. It was like kind of right around 10:05 in the morning. I think it was this one right here, 377. I took my first parts of my trade at. I think I have 200 more right here. Yeah, basically all at 377 I got filled at. So it's pretty much right off this peak, just saying it's over this area here. It needs to at least hold over this as support in order for this to be a viable move. In order for there to be a validation, it at minimum needs to lay over that as support. Now, of course, after that, there needs to be a payoff. So, of course, it worked out great, as you could see. But this ended up laying over 373. And if it even held over this for a couple bars after this here, if it didn't run so effortlessly, and if it just laid here for like a couple more minutes, I wouldn't be necessarily doing backflips, but I wouldn't be ripping my hair out. I wouldn't be threatened as long as this is holding over past resistance as support. Now, the stock is cheap. The stock has a good order book. The stock has a tight spread. That's where you're able to at least, jump up in size and do what you need to do, but ended up making a pretty good move. Now, if you're thinking about reversal time, this ended up topping off. What do you know? Right at 10:30. What time do we have class today? 10:30. So simple 1 + 1 = 2. It would make a lot of sense to get out right as we're starting class, and would have worked out pretty nicely for you. Now, outside of just saying that, though, what did I do? Well, I ended up starting to scale out of this trade beginning at $4. I took a couple shares out here and there. I took 400 out here, another 200 out there. I was kind of scaling out over time, another 200 at $4.15. Then the last part, I think, was at 421. Sorry, 421. And then from there, that was it. But, it's just to say, hey, how did this turn out to be? Well, I'm not ripping my hair if I'm down. I'm not doing backflips. I'm not, getting a little joke here, at least pardon the French, but it's not like I have some shit-eating grin on my face. I'm like, oh, I'm down. No, I'm just remaining level-headed. I'm saying, okay, well, that's not going to make or break my day as long as I just remain very intelligent with risk management. So that's where I'd asked a question earlier. I'm going to bring this up finally now at this point. I'd asked it right before I started this workshop, and I didn't have the chance to go through it. I'd asked our members inside our room, Octavia, Sam, Margaret, Elena, Gillis, Luis, a lot of us here just joining us. I see Matt here. I see Christopher L. I see James. I see Gerard, Ravi. I see Anton here, Wiz, Terry, Farzad, Pete. We got a bunch of us just joining us. I'd asked everyone inside our trading room just before, how many day trades do you take or do per day? And I'm not looking for right answer, wrong answer. I just want you to answer honestly. Like I gave different answers or choice you could pick from, kind of ranges like 1 to 3, 4 to 7, 7 to 12. If you do scalp and take smaller trades, but look for an entry exit. Maybe you take a lot. Everyone has their own cup of tea, I reckon. So I'm going to post this poll right now for all of us here. And I'm going to show it actually if you're on social media. If you're on like Facebook Live, social media right now, just give me a quick sec. I'm going to post the result here. Just give me a quick sec. I got a face for radio today, so this is as good as you'll get with my face today. But how many day trades do you do per day? Well, most of us just answered kind of split between 1 to 3 and 4 to 7. A few of us doing 7 to 12. A couple of us doing over 20, right? That's where I'll just kind of re-ask everyone this question. And if you're not a golf fan or aficionado there, no sweat. You don't need to be to answer this next question. If you're taking 7 day trades a day and you go break even on 1 or 2 of them, exactly at the same price, that's par, right? Is that good or bad? Anything other than good, and you haven't been paying attention, right? And every one of us, of course, saying good, right? So exactly. That's where I came to you just before and I said, listen, I had a loss in my first trade. I took 2 break evens after at least. So maybe you'll call it a bogey and then a couple pars. All right. I'm not trailing that far behind. I'm not like, doing that awful. So there's no need to put that pressure on you. There's no need to, put this recovery on a pedestal and say, all right, you got to make this whole big, to do of it. No, but that also doesn't mean to not trade again. And that's it. You got to have the confidence to take the next trade. But that's where you say, going back to kind of what we fall back on with class, my catchphrases, my crushes. Well, hey, my best entries to buy a stock are directly after it breaks through a big level on the way up. Right? It's the same exact thing every time. There's no difference. It's a slide right from class. But that's just where I'll tell you, though, where do we find our big levels? If that's my reasoning for jumping into a trade, all right, well, where are my big levels? How do I know what a big level looks like? Well, we started to talk about that in class just before with the chart. It's not just one tippy top. It's not just one little tiny bottom. It's a matter of seeing a level build out for a series of minutes. Correct? That's what we just talked about before, right? So between that and then, of course, level 3 and level 4, looking at the ECN book, looking at, the big icebergs out there, of course, that is the biggest talking point. We're going to talk more about that, though, in class next month at least. But, this class all about the charts. That's what led me to take this call out or take this trade, as I called it out. So there's always going to be another move. And I don't mean that in like the degenerate gambling sense. Market's closing at 4:00 today. So technically, we're going to have an end to this day, right? But that's just where, at least even now, as we're talking live right now, SMCI is flying. There could have been opportunity to still jump in on this freaking thing. Look what happened at $63. Poking at it, bam. Now on the flip yourself up if you're not jumping into, late morning, early afternoon moves. because we teach you, we train you in our classes that, the best times, the times that you should have the most confidence at least, are the early morning, are later parts of the afternoon. So, 3 o'clock there. Jump into this right now. Again, don't beat yourself up. There might be trades that are not as chaotic as this, that are, ripping complete ceilings off like no other, right? Just because it's going up doesn't mean it's so easy. Let me ask us this question, especially our new members here. I see Christopher L. Sylvain. I see Michael. Got a bunch more of us here just testing our room out for the week. We appreciate you folks, but ask everyone honestly. Has there ever been a time in your trading career, whether recently or a long time ago, where you saw a stock going up, 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 and you jump in, you finally muster up the courage to at least jump in, and of course, and then the thing comes back down? Now, I've been doing this with Fausto for over 10 years, so you got to realize that I know a question when I ask one. That's a loaded question because I know that everyone has experienced that at some point in time. So I want you to answer that so, of course, your fellow traders can at least realize that you're not alone. Every single one of us answered. So that's just where we say, in the sake of saving our ass and not just jumping in to jump in, if you miss out on this move already, all right, well, let's see if resistance can become support. We don't need to just jump into this. Let's find where our big levels are, right? Didn't we talk about 65 being anyway? So why would I look to jump in now at this stage in the trade, at this point, and so close? You never want to buy underneath resistance like this. If you had missed out from 62, or if you had missed out from 60, it's going to be tougher to expect more. So that's where we just say, you know what? All right, if I miss out on this stock, or if I don't feel as comfortable on this stock right here, right now, there could be others. There could be others, right? And not only right now at this time of the day, this technically is like garbage mail time of the day right now. Like, not really as many people are truly at their desk. So even later, there's going to be plenty of more opportunities. Don't beat yourself down too much in any regard, whether you took a loss and you have to fight your way back, or maybe you're just kind of overwhelmed with how a stock is moving in the moment and you're not jumping in when you could, maybe should, whatever. Time's on our side. We got a lot of opportunity remaining. It's just a matter of being disciplined with your strategy, knowing why you're taking a trade to even start with. We covered a good brunt of that in class just before. If you're in the phase 1 stock course, that's where I went through that whole slide deck with you and did like a 75-minute class. Quite frankly, I went like 15 minutes over on that, to be honest with you. So, did a lot there, but going over basic charting principles. The more that we have this in our heads, the more that we're going through class, the more that you're working with us on the side and coaching, we're going to instill these concepts directly into your head to the point where it's just kind of by nature. So I don't mind missing out on certain moves because I know there's 1,000 more moves ahead I could try and sink my teeth into. But again, that doesn't mean to just jump in. It just means you got to find something that fits strategy. That's the key. And if we're not disciplined with using the same strategy over and over and over and over and over, well, yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot harder to make money. You might jump into a lot of shit, but you might lose more often than not because you don't have good strategy. That's where I kind of sound like one of those, wind-up dolls, one of the drawstring dolls. You pull the string from the back of the doll, say the same 5 catchphrases over and over. You hear me say this so frequent for a reason. There's more to it than just these catchphrases. There is. But this is where it begins. If you're not fixated on this, then you are not going with any sort of upward momentum. That's why this even here was such a nice breakout trade off of $7. It took a few nips of the level, just like we taught in this workshop. And the more times it keeps peppering this thing with higher lows, nice pop, and you get the run. So, that's just where, again, strategy will pay off. Regardless of time of the day, we do, again, want you to focus more in the early morning, more in the later afternoon, even more. But still, plenty of money to be made here. Just a matter of retaining strategy and being disciplined with knowing why you're jumping in. All right, so folks, a couple more things that I wanted to jump into here today, but we're going to save it for next week. We can, and actually a couple of juicy, good questions in regards to the dynamic of the trading room, in regards to, and I don't even like going over this as much because this trading room is about you, not me. This is not the Josh show. But I had a question got sent in from a student earlier asking what my personal pet peeves are as an instructor. I'm like, oh, okay, if you want me to answer that. So we'll save that for next week. We'll do that one for next week at least. Of course, we're going to keep it very vague. But if you want to know some things that like I'd want you to stay away from, certainly we can cover that next week. Sam says, Josh and Fausto have always said tomorrow there is another opportunity, and it is true. Well, I'll tell you what, someone else had originated that quote, at least here inside our trading room. Later, you can probably give it there from our longtime friend Richard K. But there's always another day, right? Carrie says, I know one of his when taking a class, do not do anything else. That's one of them. That's one of them, Gary. You got it. There is more than just that, but hey, if your mind's split as a student, then you're not making use of what you're paying for, right? Let alone the time, the money invested. So, that is one, but, we got a couple other things I don't always bring up as frequent. That's always like the main thing I mention, just so we keep your attention in the class, but we'll go over a couple things. All right, folks. Hey, we're going to finish up at least for right now. Hey, if you have any other questions, feel free to shoot me over a quick private chat message. It'll take about 30 minutes to untie the tongue, get some water in me, get some lunch, late breakfast, early lunch, whatever you want to call it. And I got a couple coaching calls I'll be on throughout the afternoon, at least otherwise. And we got class later on this afternoon too. So with that said, if you are interested in joining us for our classes, if you're inside our live trading room, just talk to one of our education advisors, whether it's Rich, whether it's John, whether it's Alex. They'll be able to break down the curriculum, the schedule, the course packages. If you are on social media, at least Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, the works. There we go. Got that obnoxious one here today. Cyber Trading U popping up there on the banner in blue below at Cyber Trading U. If you are on LinkedIn, X, Facebook, just make sure to subscribe right to our YouTube channel at Cyber Trading U. And then you'll be more in tune with knowing when we go live, when we have our streams, our workshops, our webinars, etc. And then otherwise, if you wanted to take the next step right now, join us inside our live trading room. A couple of different options there, perhaps. Otherwise, what you could do is flash that camera, your phone, your camera on the corner right there. You see right in front of my position manager, you see free live workshop. You could actually click that right there and scan your QR code with that and give you access to our live trading room. Then otherwise, you can go right down to the bottom if you're not as fancy with your phone. Just the scrolling banner on the bottom in blue, ctu.co/trial. Short link right there. Takes you right to a page to sign up for a week-long trial. But otherwise, folks, hey, we'll be back on later on this afternoon, 2:30 p.m. inside our trading room is our next audio broadcast. You know what? I'd be remiss if I finished without showing this break of 65. Let's see what happens here. We got 2 more minutes? Let's see what happens here. Is this going to break over this 325,000 share sell order here or what? Let's find out. Let's see. There we go. So it only went up to 97 so far. It didn't break over. Oh, just did there. Just smashed over that seller. There we go. Let's see. Yep. At least it filled it. But, I'd be expecting a false breakout at first, profit taking at first, and then potentially for it to try and maybe flip over it and hold that as support. But again, I'm being reluctant here with even thinking about continuation because of how much it already moved up until this point here. So, I would expect resistance to hold at first, maybe later in the next 20, 30 minutes, maybe in the next hour. If it keeps peppering this level, there could be a chance, but I would look for this to be a top. All right, folks. Hey, we're going to wrap up at least for right now. We'll be back on inside our live trading room just later on this afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, subscribe right to our YouTube channel. Lastly, before we finish up, at Cyber Trading U if you're joining us on social media. We look forward to having you join us inside our room soon enough, though. Otherwise, folks, take care.